You know, there's a lot being said about millennials and Gen Z, but I'll tell you who I have a bone to pick with today.
Oh, let me know.
Because Generation X.
Oh God! Yes, we okay. I like where this is going.
All I'm saying, Lucas, is that the show we watched today, that these are made by people who are a generation before you and I.
Yeah.
So you're kind of on the border. I'm definitely a millennial. This is made by people who grew up in Generation X, and I gotta say, their couches too big and too comfy. I don't have a big couch, nor do I have a comfy couch. So this seems to me like Gen X favoritism. This seems to me like they're just flaunting what they have in front of me, who's just trying to make life work with the small, crappy couch that I have. Yeah, I don't appreciate it.
I totally agree with you, Will. Not to get into it now, but you hear a lot of discourse online about, boomers and millennials and Gen Z, the Zoomers. And I just want to say I am lockstep with you. The whole time, Gen X has secretly been the worst generation.
They're the scheming masterminds behind this they're the profiteers that are coming out of this ongoing culture war between the somewhat young and the very young.
Yeah, they invented the South Park mentality. They like have this new metal. Just kidding, I like new metal, but
let's not go crazy.
Not go crazy. No, but I am here for the Gen X slander. What I'm not here though for slander of is the show we're watching this week, which you've alluded to. It's Big Comfy Couch.
That's right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of For the Kids, a PBS Kids podcast with me, Will Young, and my co-host, Lucas Mancini. This was another week where we took to the Patreon poll to see... This is also a good way to kind of take the temperature of the shows that people are most interested in. And it really came down to 2 out of the 4. If you go on patreon.com, well, you know where to go, especially if you're hearing this. So it turned out that there is a vein of interest in Molly of Denali, which I will keep track of, and I will make sure that we get to it at some point sooner rather than later. Not so much love for the other 2, for Xavier Riddle or for Odd Squad, but there was a deep desire for us to talk about the Canadian children's show from the from the 90s to the 2000s, kind of crossing generations almost. It is indeed the Big Comfy Couch. This actually debuted before you were born, Lucas.
Oh, when did this come out? And by the way, I just want to point out before we move on, it was a tight race between 2 shows with a Molly character this week. Which
you're
is
right.
Something that I only realized right now. It's Molly week. It's Molly season here on the pod.
So clearly our patrons have Molly on the brain in some way or another. So we are very excited to talk about this. Yeah, I mean, how we usually like to start this is, kind of our own memories of the show, but I'm wondering exactly what yours would be, because I was kind of prime target for this television show when it originally aired. But Lucas, you were, not to blow up your spot here, you were born in 95?
Correct.
So this started in 92. So by the time you came around, like literally into the world, this was already established. And by the time that you would be able to even grasp what you were looking at on a television screen, I don't know, it might not have been exactly as popular as it was at one point.
No, I have a deep history with this show. This was a big show in my household.
Deep history?
Yeah, I mean, I watched this all the time when I was a kid. And I remember having takes and opinions on Big Comfy Couch even then. But this was a show where, of all the shows, I feel like a broken record at this point. We talk about this every single week with these Canadian shows where I'm like, oh, this was a Teletoon show, this was this show, and I was more of a YTV guy, blah, 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 blah. And it's the old adage every week, because a lot of these PBS shows, because they're looking for a kind of a younger audience, they were often on Treehouse TV, which I never really was a fan of. I was always, the channels were 26 was Treehouse and 27 was YTV, and I was always cranking that up to 27. But the one show that I would opt to go for Treehouse for would be Big Comfy Couch. I was a big Comfy Couch head back in the day. And I think you'll find this, Will, with a lot of people my age. I have my neighbor that I'm friends with in the same building as me. And when we're reminiscing about old children's shows, because it's me, we're talking about children's shows, she'll always bring up Big Comfy Couch as one of her favorites, and how she went as Lunette the Clown for Halloween and so on and so forth. So even with people my age, it was a big cultural force.
Absolutely. And that is something that we'll get into a little bit throughout this episode, I feel, is kind of its lasting impact on people who were once children. It's, we'll get to it all. And once again, I had a really great time coming up with the research to this, and I have to thank Rev'd in the Discord. Sent me the link to the defunct TV episode of the Big Comfy Couch. Now, I try to be straight up where I get my information sources from. This is not the first time that a defunct TV episode has been a focal point of the research. Defunct TV, by the way, is a semi-regular series that the YouTube channel Defunctland does. I would recommend that whole channel wholeheartedly. This was a big help in the research. I will say that I would recommend that you watch this video along with listening to this episode, because the video goes into a lot more of the history, the personal history of the creator of the Big Comfy Couch, and gets a few details of their life that I chose not to go into. I decided to stick more to the kind of production history of the show. And the person behind the Big Comfy Couch, her name is Cheryl Wagner. She was the show creator, showrunner, and story editor. So Cheryl Wagner, she started her career as a puppeteer, and she moved up quite quickly. She ended up working with Jim Henson on Fraggle Rock as one of her more early show credits. And she also played a role on something we've brought up before, Mr. Dress Up, the kind of Canadian answer to Mr. Rogers. So she was a puppeteer and performer, and for the Big Comfy Couch, she teamed up with puppeteer Rob Mills to develop and produce the show. And Rob Mills used to be the head of what was called Radical Sheep Productions. Now, this is where I usually like to look up other stuff that the studio was into, and it was a studio that did a lot of kind of puppet-based television shows and programs. I didn't recognize a whole lot of them, and so I wondered maybe if you recognize. So there were two. There were two that I think you and I and people are close to our age might recognize. Are you familiar with the show Puppets Who Kill?
Puppets Who Kill? No, I'm not. I'm looking up these Radical Sheep shows now. Puppets Who Kill. I'm intrigued by the name. That's for sure.
That was more of an adult thing. It was like a comedy,
Cranky Anchor style,
kind of similar, yeah. And there was another show that I ended up recognizing. There's a lot of memories unlocked in this episode, and this was one of them. They did a show called Rufus the Dog, or I should have looked this up. It's Rufus, but it's spelled Ruffus, so it might be Rufus the Dog. I'm not 100% on that one. Anyway, I recognize the puppet, and that's kind of what Radical Sheep Productions was known for at the time. Check this out. This is one of the themes of For the Kids that I absolutely love, is ties back to our homeland of Nova Scotia. So Cheryl Wagner spent some time in the 70s and 80s working with a Halifax-based touring outfit called Maritime Clown and Puppet Company. So at some point before we were both born, there was a clown company that was active in Halifax.
Some might say there's a few clown companies active in Halifax
man.
today.
I wish I'd even set you up for that, but I really didn't mean to.
The Irvings,
the Sobies,
Amera, who run Nova Scotia Power. I have a few clown companies come to mind, but something tells me that this is a different type of clown you're referring to.
This is great. We can clown on as many privatized companies as we want, and they'll have to pay us for the honor of hearing it.
Yeah.
So eventually, the Big Comfy Couch is obviously a huge credit in the career of Cheryl Wagner. She went on to found Periscope Productions, which operates now out of Charlottetown and Prince Edward Island, which is PEI the easternmost province, or is that Newfoundland? That's Newfoundland,
I think
isn't
it's
it?
Still Newfoundland, yeah.
Okay, so it's one of the easternmost provinces, part of the Atlantic provinces, along with Nova Scotia, where we live, Newfoundland and New Brunswick. Yes, quite small. So it produces content like there's a preschool puppet web series called Bunny Bop that is, again, puppet based, and that was part of one of the Periscope Pictures' biggest claim to fame. Periscope Pictures also involved with Halifax-based kids productions, and here's a couple of others that I wonder if you recognize, Lucas. This might have been more around your age range. Poco is one of them.
Oh, wait a minute. Poco sounds incredibly familiar.
Poco was a claymation show, I think.
Yes, I do remember Poco. Poco was also worked on, I know this, we brought this person up in the Theodore the Tugboat episode, I believe, yes, created by Jeff Rosen. Jeff Rosen of producing Theodore the Tugboat fame, he was the sole actually creator and writer and developer, well, not sole, but he partnered with Cheryl Wagner on it, but to make Poco.
And another show that's Halifax-based, Beau on the Go.
Yes, and I am familiar with Beau on the Go as well. Both Poco and Beau on the Go were shows that were on CBC, like CBC Kids.
Yes.
And so there were shows that actually, I think they were more so, I was a little bit old for them at the time, but my sister liked all these shows quite a bit.
What was the nature of Beau on the Go?
Beau on the Go was definitely like lesser. That Lunar Jim and Poco were like the CBC ones that we really liked. Beau on the Go, I'm looking at this character now, and I don't really remember the specifics of it.
Okay. So Big Comfy Couch was partially produced through companies like the McLean Hunter Television Fund, which was based out of Ontario, YTV, of course, which we'll talk about a bit more, and WITF TV in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So that's public TV out of Harrisburg. The show was filmed in Ontario, so it is a very, very Canadian project, a deeply Canadian project. The idea that Cheryl Wagner wanted to have with the show, and this is from the Defunct TV video, was that she wanted to promote an anti-couch potato message and make a show that encouraged kids to get moving. So that's a big part of the ethos of the Big Comfy Couch. The Big Comfy Couch started airing in 1992. It went all the way to 2002. And its initial run with 7 seasons of 100 episodes. I should also mention there was a 7th season, or there were 2 more seasons. One aired in 2002 and another in 2006. So it actually has a bit of a further reach than I guessed. So the original airing was on YTV, which, as we mentioned, was channel 27 in Halifax for us. We've made the connection before that YTV was kind of like the. Was it the Cartoon Network, or how did you kind of compare it?
Every time we do this, it's not exactly a 1-to-1 because, for instance, Teletoon gets some of the, like, Family Channel would get some of like the Disney shows, and then Teletoon would get some of the Cartoon Network shows, and YTV would get like some of the Nickelodeon shows, but it was never like 1-to-1. They all kind of moved around and stuff.
You're right, but I would say in like attitude, it was like our Nickelodeon.
I would say that like YTV was like 1 to 7. Or maybe 1 to 8 was Treehouse, and then YTV was like the your 7 to 14 type of programming.
Yeah, and very, very formative for our time. Like, I think that I have a lot to say about YTV. So, like enough to fill a podcast. Perhaps when we finish with PBS, we may go over to YTV, but that may be also open to a suggestion from patrons as well. But we have a long way to go with that. So, originally started airing in YTV starting in 1992. It moved to PBS in 1995 after it was very successful on YTV. So, American Public Broadcasting took advantage of that and started airing The Big Comfy Couch in 1995 when I would have been 5 years old. I would have probably been watching it beforehand because if it started airing in 1992, I was 2 years old, or getting to be 2. After 1996, PBS aired the show exclusively, so it was off YTV starting in 1996 until 2002, and at that point, it was partially being produced by Treehouse TV. So at that point, Treehouse TV was kind of a bit of a splinter off of YTV. It was a sister station, as we mentioned before. So seasons 1 to 5 aired from 1992 to 1996. Season 6 aired in 2002, and season 7 in 2006. The good news is that Big Comfy Couch is available on a bunch of streaming services right now, including select official episode uploads on YouTube, which was where we found today's episode. So thankfully, it is nowhere near lost media. You can find Big Comfy Couch pretty readily, whether you're in Canada or the United States or otherwise. Let's get into a little bit about the cast of The Big Comfy Couch, because there are some interesting connections here that I didn't expect to find. So, of course, the big star of the show is Lunette the Clown, and she was played by Allison Court, who began as a child actor on Mr. Dress Up, as we mentioned before. She was also featured in the Sesame Street movie Follow That Bird, which I've never seen.
I've never seen it either.
And she also has experience as a voice actor. So you may recognize her if you watched the 90s X-Men cartoon. She was the voice of Jubilee.
Well, and now she's gone on to have a bunch of credits in video games. That's primarily where you see her.
That's right. She is until very recently, until the Resident Evil 2 remake, she was the voice of Claire Redfield, like the go-to voice in everything, from video games to like those weird CGI movies that they do for Resident Evil. She also made a very memorable appearance a few years ago on This Hour Has 22 Minutes, which is a popular Canadian sketch / satire news show. It was the year when everybody was getting scared of clowns, so they had her appear in full Lunette costume.
I have tickets to go see 22 Minutes next week.
They're still taping?
Of course.
I mean, I just mean in terms of COVID.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. A friend messaged me. I think it's one of those things where you have to know somebody, because I've wanted to go to 22 Minutes all my life, but I never knew how. I didn't think it's something as simple as like, oh, you sign up and then you get tickets. I think you got to know someone who knows someone, and this week apparently I know someone because we're going next week.
I'm surprised you didn't get the chance to go when we were both in the same radio, television, journalism program. I remember a bunch of my classmates went in our year, and I just decided not to. I haven't kept up with 22 Minutes in a long time. I'm surprised you didn't get the opportunity that way.
I know. I would have been excited, but hey, it's happening now.
I also want to give a shout out to Ramona Gilmore Darling, who played Lunette in the final season of the show in 2006. Obviously not as long in the role as Allison Court, but from what footage I saw, she seemed to do her best to kind of live up to the role. We had puppeteer Bob Stutt, who was the performer for Molly, for the Dust Bunnies, and for Snickle Fritz the cat. And Bob Stutt, a couple of interesting credits here. He was the voice of the Gilbert puppet on Caillou, which we talked about like a month or so ago. And he also wrote for Theodore Tugboat.
Oh, look at this.
So another kind of Halifax connection there. There is Grindel Kucherka, who plays Granny Garbanzo, who was not in the episode that we watched, but is a major part of the show. And that's another great reason to watch the Defunct TV episode. They go into a bit of her history. She's a world-renowned dancer and clown performer. Her website is very well kept up, and it seems that she's like a professional clown, which sometimes you can forget that that does exist as something of a vocation in terms of like a splinter of an acting career. There's Fred Stinson, who plays Major Bedhead, who was also a puppeteer for, speaking of CBC Kids, Sesame Park. Now, not Sesame Street, but there was a Canadian-American co-production called Sesame Park that aired on CBC.
I remember Sesame Park. I haven't watched it that much. I was always more of a street guy. I think as a kid, street. It sounded weird to call myself a street guy. But as a kid, I think I could tell that at Sesame Street had a higher production quality, a bigger budget. But I'd be interested to go back to Park and see how it fares, in hindsight. I have a lot more of an affinity for Canadiana now, so I wonder if I'd like it more.
I never watched it. By the time it came around, I was a little bit too old for Sesame, whether Sesame's Parks or Streets. And he also did some puppeteering for Bride of Chucky, the movie Bride of Chucky. And finally, Tabora Johnson plays Auntie Macassar. She's a singer and actor. She appeared in some voice roles as well, like on shows such as The Animal Shelf, which was part of Itsy Bitsy Time on Treehouse TV. She was on Naughty as well, which I think was a PBS. No, I think it was either PBS or TLC, the Naughty Shop. The Busy World of Richard Scarry and Babar. So a little bit of everything in terms of the childhood of Canadian children in the 90s. And of course, I think even before we started this, we knew that The Big Comfy Couch was a very popular show among both kids and parents. And it was very long-lived as a result. The show produced music albums. There were children's apps that were made within the last 5 years, which was a bit of a surprise to me. There were live tours because of it. They toured around Alberta and Saskatchewan malls, and then they did a cross-Canada and U.S. tour, a couple of live tours there, as well as books and toys. And the cast even appeared on a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade float in 2003.
Okay, so that causes another question for me, which is that this show, obviously, from going through this history, has deep Canadian roots.
Oh my, yes. We haven't even gotten to all of them yet.
Yeah, it's a Canadian show through and through. Maybe you'll get into this later, so just let me know. But what was the reception like down south? If it's in a Macy's parade, I assume that there might have had some level of popularity in the States.
It's hard to tell, but I think that I just mean there's no solid figures that I could find, but as popular as it was in Canada, I think it reached similar levels in the United States as well, for the reasons we kind of just talked about, and I think that kind of plays into how strong of a product for children's television it was. So the show won a few awards in its time. It won the 1993 Alliance for Children in Television Award of Excellence. It won in 2007 the Mid-South Emmy for Best Children's Program and Set Design. I didn't realize that we were kind of boxing off Emmys by region. Apparently that does happen. It also won the 1995 Gemini Award for Best Children's Program, which I wanted to talk about briefly. The Gemini Awards are another Canadian staple. They're essentially the biggest Canadian TV and film awards. They're kind of like the Canadian Golden Globes in a way. And every couple of years, I'll hear about this Canadian production won a Gemini Award, it's kind of like the biggest media award that we have, I think.
Okay, Gemini Awards 2021. I was about to ask you, Will. I was gonna be like, do the Gemini Awards still happen?
Apparently so. I also wanted to highlight, before you go too far in the Wikipedia page, so before Big Comfy Couch won in 1995, here's an example of other television shows that were Gemini winners, and it includes people like Raffi, our favorite children's singer, Raffi.
Absolute legend. Listen, I'm one of Raffi's hitters. You don't be talking no shit about Raffi, because that guy could do no wrong.
Love Raffi. In this house, we stan a Raffi legend. Shining Time Station, previous episode, also former Gemini winner. Mr. Dress Up, Lamb Chop, another Canadian television staple, and Are You Afraid of the Dark also won a Gemini Award for Best Children's Program.
So the Gemini Awards don't exist anymore. The last Gemini Award was awarded in 2011, but now it's called the Canadian Screen Awards. So the Gemini and the Genie Award branding have been discontinued, but there's still the Canadian Screen Awards.
Right. Was the Genie a stage award? Am I getting that wrong?
No.
What was the Genie?
The Genie was the movie one. Like the Genie was the Oscars and the
Oh.
Gemini was the Emmys.
Excuse me. I thought the Gemini encompassed both TV and movies.
Well, now
so that's
that's
my mistake.
As the Canadian
Okay.
Screen Awards, yeah, it's all one thing now. It makes sense that you would get it all mixed up.
I do miss the kind of fantastical branding of the Gemini and the Genie. Also, a Gemini winner is our next show on the podcast, which I will talk about at the end of the episode. But now it's time to get into this episode of the Big Comfy Couch. Now, we did have people on our Discord saying you need to make sure that you have these elements in here. So I tried our best to find one that encompassed most, if not all of those, and to talk about all of the different segments in a typical episode of the Big Comfy Couch. So we settled on Sticks and Stones, Season 3, Episode 6. It originally aired September 16th, 1994. I would have been 4 years old. So who knows? I might have seen this as it aired. I may not have. And as always, let's talk about the theme song composed by J.P. Houston, who apparently composed this while he was still in high school.
What?
That was on his Wikipedia page, and I could not find the reference for that. But allegedly,
So either
composed while this fellow was in high school.
either he was like some sort of like savant, or like maybe he knew somebody. That's really impressive. I wrote down, so of course it's hard to compare to anything other than children's music because it's got those children's harmonies as the vocal, but instrumentally it kind of reminded me of some like weirdo like early 2000s like avant pop, like clap your hands, say yeah, or like Tune Yards or something, like those weird early 2000s, like not quite Arcade-fied era, but these like weirdo indie rock bands from back then. That's what it kind of reminds me of that. And there's another song in this episode where I'm like, oh, this kind of sounds like that too.
Interesting.
But
I mean, I don't have the experience with that type of music, so I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah, it's not a one-to-one comparison. Don't get me wrong. We always try to find some point of comparison here. But I will say, it does the job in that it's catchy. I think it gets you excited for the show. I think by all metrics, it is a great theme song for this show.
It's very memorable. It absolutely fits the tone. It's not exactly something I would listen to in my spare time, like some of the other themes we've had. But yeah, very good at getting you in the mood for watching the show and kind of the energy level that it brings. My first note here is that I feel like this is probably something that a lot of Canadians shared. My family had a couch that looks like the Big Comfy Couch in terms of very similar color and wear, I suppose. What about you? Did you ever have a big comfy couch like this one?
I don't remember. I don't have a great memory of like the furniture in my parents' house. I'd have to go back and look at old pictures. I don't think so though. I don't think my mom, I think, was pretty adverse to like florals and stuff like that. I don't think it was quite her style. I wanted one though. The show was Big Couch. Whoever was kind of funding the program made me want a giant couch like this.
Just call me Big Couch. That's my nickname now. The episode starts off with Lunette, who is a young girl who is also a clown, and then Molly, who is also a clown but is a puppet, who is a doll, I should say, like a clown doll, sort of. But she looks just like a normal person with like a red nose. Lunette and Molly are playing pickup sticks, which hadn't heard of this game in a long time. I feel like pickup sticks is not exactly all that fun anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played pickup sticks. I've just seen it in like children's stores and stuff. I think this is like something that it seems like a game like when people used to like push a hoop down the street with a big stick, like one of those games that was from before games got good. Like
3-4 shut the door, 5-6 pick up sticks. That's about as far as I get these days.
But something about the pickup sticks is that they're huge. Like what's fun about this show is the way it plays with perspective, as children's shows often do. So to make Lunette look less like a grown woman and more like a little child, she's given these kind of oversized clothes, and And the couch is actually like way like not only is it big, it's massive. It's like huge to make her look extra small. And then the pickup sticks though are also like the pickup sticks make her look like toy sized because the pickup sticks are giant. And usually I think they're a lot more like chopstick sized.
Like handheld. These are more like javelins. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the design of the show. I mean, speaking specifically about Lunette, it's a design that catches your eye immediately because she's wearing all of these kinds of different design, like these patterns that clash with each other and all these like big loud colors, but it makes her really easy to remember. Like I can see in my head, she's got the dark hair in the pigtails. She's got the purple hat, the red nose, the black and white striped stockings, the pink jumper. Like a lot of her and a lot of the other characters too, their designs really stick in your mind because of how colorful and outlandish they are.
It makes sense that this outfit has become it kind of has this lasting impact as like a Halloween costume. Especially because like I feel like clowns have been having a big comeback lately. It's funny that you mentioned that 22 Minutes 2016 clown clip. Yeah, maybe we're just on different parts of TikTok, but I feel like I think that. Okay, this is a little bit of an aside, but I suppose we're behind the Patreon wall. So, I don't know how much you've been on Tinder in Montreal, Will.
I can't say that I ever have, so go on, please.
But I've seen this one firsthand in the past with the Tinder passport feature, and I've also heard this reported back from my little birds, if you will, in Montreal, my spies in Montreal, that there is a phenomenon of people dressing like clowns. Like there's it's like an alt thing. Like alt people are like into clowns lately. It's like they're in a big comeback. It's like but it's not like the creepy clown phenomenon of like 2016. It's more so like they like Cupid clowns and like kind of those clown dolls that like your grandma would like, with like the hard heads and then the soft bodies.
That's not better.
I've dated more than one girl in the last let's say we'll keep it broad, year and a half or so that was into clowns. It's more than one. So I think clowns with a specific type of person are definitely making a big comeback. And maybe it's because it was imprinted on our Canadian child psyches. This is very Freud, all the way back in 1992 or what have you. That could explain it.
Lucas, I don't want to pry into your personal life more than I feel that I should. So I want you to know that you are
subscribers are getting their money's worth this week.
I want you to know that you are in control here.
Yes.
But when you say into clowns, what does that mean exactly?
Like they just they're into it's like an aesthetic thing. Everybody's like, like in the same way people okay, I got an idea for you. Have you heard of juggalos?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have.
Whoop whoop. Are you down with the clown? Or are you running with the hatchet? I would say that.
I'm down. Now I will say that I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm running with the hatchet, but I would say that I am down with the clown.
Okay. So I think that the way that these people are into clowns is not dissimilar to the way that juggalos are into clowns.
Okay.
In that it's like an aesthetic interest. They're like, man, these old timey grandma kind of clown dolls look really cool to them. It's like a cool, kitschy kind of like I'm like an alt person. I think clowns are cool. That's what it is.
Right. I mean, listen, it's not, I never want you to talk more about your romantic life than I think you're comfortable with. As we've been extolled before, we are the number one non-horny podcast in the city.
It's true.
So I want to make sure that, that's clear, but you said into clowns, and I will say that I started thinking things that I didn't appreciate in my own head.
Listen, that's what happens when you kind of leave a blank canvas. In fact, the fact that your imagination went there, Will, might say a little bit more about you than it says about me. No, I protest. I'm just joking. But we gotta move on, or else we'll be talking about Montreal Clown Tinder all night.
Okay, so I will say this because It is kind of interesting to think about. Like that's why I kind of let you go on, because I didn't realize that there's been any kind of clownaissance going on, because I'm used to the idea that now that our generation is a little older, we're all kind of turned our back on clowns. Like I think clowning, at least from kind of myriad sources that I've heard over the past decade or so, has gotten more difficult because now clowns are seen more routinely as scary. Whereas for people making the Big Comfy Couch in the early 90s, like clowns were still kind of viewed as like children, like go-to children's entertainers. Whereas now it's just like, I mean, nothing against clowns. I think clowning is actually a really cool thing that you can learn how to do and be really good at. And I certainly don't begrudge anybody earnestly becoming a clown, but it's been so co-opted by the kind of horror aesthetic, thanks to like movies like It and all of the other kind of like Pennywise stuff, and just kind of made in different ways. And there's also something about the clown aesthetic that, to me, is like, oh no, I left that in childhood, so there's no appeal to me. Like, you won't find me on Montreal Clown Tinder. If I were ever in such a situation, I would quickly delete the app and potentially just throw my phone into the sea, just to make sure they don't get me.
Before we move on, again, and I don't want to sound like methinks the man doth protest too much, but I'm not looking for clowns on Montreal Clown Tinder. The clowns find me, Will. No, but I see what you're saying for sure, and I definitely think that like that is definitely the big kind of pop culture thing these days, is like, oh, clowns have to be creepy. There's got to be some sort of like inversion of the classic clown tropes. But I have seen that like grandma style, like Cupid style, like, oh, I like this clown because it's like a cute little baby man, more so than like a creepy guy. That's kind of coming back a little bit, at least apparently in the circles where I'm hanging out. But in terms of like what's getting movies made, there's no like, there's not a lot of like, there's no clown cartoons, there's no clown children's shows, and if there's a clown movie, it's like a horror clown movie for sure.
Yeah, it's very easy to make clowns more frightening or intimidating, because it's an easy kind of go-to for like a fractured innocence kind of character of like, but now it's just like, it's just been that for so long. It's like how zombies pervaded the media 10 years ago. Now I feel like the go-to horror villain or monster is an evil clown. So it's easy to understand right away. Anyway, all that to say, you know, we have Lunette here, and everybody kind of dressed as a clown. It's a real throwback to childhood, as I feel a lot of representations of clowns are meant to be, and makes you realize, well, we don't see that very much anymore. For better or worse, it just kind of is what it is.
And it's not just the human characters that are clowns, too. We get kind of one of the first kind of mainstays. You start to realize this show, much like some of the shows that inspired it, Mr. Dress Up, or some of its contemporaries like Sesame Street, much like those shows, this show kind of has that kind of variety children's show kind of format, where we have these reoccurring characters. So we zoom in from Lunette and Molly under the Big Comfy Couch and check in with the Dust Bunnies, who are also clowns.
That's right. So kind of on this, I wanted to make one more observation. So as I said before, Molly is kind of a puppet which is a doll with a clown nose. I want to say, like, and this is not like a slight against the other actors or characters, Molly's my favorite character. I think she's adorable.
Molly is very cute, and as being such a big Pal fan, that makes sense to me.
Well, and because when I was a kid, and really still, like, I'm looking at my stuffed Pikachu doll on my desk. Like, I have a big affinity for stuffed animals, and Molly kind of fits in that same mold, and especially because the way that she's puppeteered, like her movements are very basic, because her arms are kind of stuck in a permanent crook, and she can't really move her legs or anything. She was always kind of in a seated position, but the movements that are made for her are very basic, yet they're very expressive. Like, I think that the puppeteer is able to get a lot across with very little, and I think that speaks to his personal talent. And some other puppets include the Dust Bunnies, so Fuzzy and Wuzzy. Yeah, you mentioned. So the Dust Bunnies, they'll often go under the couch and they'll be doing some kind of slapstick comedy. So that's where they find one of the pickup sticks under the couch. Again, really great use of the set design here, because we go from the huge couch to then we have this big overhang of the foot of the couch, and there's the kind of visual challenge of making normal things as big props. So if everything looked bigger in the normal set, now everything looks even bigger because we're going down even smaller. I also got big Canadian 90s kids PSA from these puppets. It might be hard to explain, but there's definitely a good few PSAs during our childhoods that involved like these kind of puppets. It reminded me of there's that one with the two mice who are in the maze and like almost get into the mouse trap.
It's not even a maze. They're just in like the nook or cranny in someone's house. Right, and one mouse wants to take the cheese and the other one's like, don't take the cheese. I have a friend who rants and raves about that ad because they think it ruins the healthy curiosity in children, and it instills like a complex where kids are averse to risk taking. I have a friend who like hates that particular PSA.
I know that some things are okay and some things are not, and I think if we don't know what it is, we should ask. And so on. I could keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. So, did you have anything else to kind of say? This is the most we see the dust bunnies.
We basically move on to what is my, and I'm sure you're gonna have a lot to say about this because it's kind of integral to the whole kind of mentality of the show. But we get to the Lunette's probably the most famous aspect of the entire show. Top two is her little like clock dance.
The iconic clock stretch.
Yes, the clock
that she would do every episode. Okay, so I kind of interrogated you a little bit on your thing. So now I'm going to offer up something from my life that is potentially a little embarrassing. And thankfully, my dad will probably never listen to this podcast. So I just ask you to not think too ill of him when I say, when I had the big comfy couch on, my dad was a little too interested in the clock stretch.
What?
And I think that might have been like something of a running joke of like when people get older and then just like you kind of look at the clock stretch. What it is that Lunette does these series of stretches, mostly involving like her legs and being in seated positions and stuff like that. And she's fairly flexible and her limb control is really impressive as she kind of takes her legs around the clock and does certain stretches to different times. And it's always the same. Like she had kind of two, I think, very similar routines that she would do they would just cut to every single episode. And I think as you get older, you kind of look at it and it's just like, it's possible to see it in something of a different light than you saw it as a kid. I don't, but maybe for my father seeing it on the television and being like, okay,
what is
like,
this?
He wasn't making it like super obvious or anything.
Your dad needs to get on Montreal Tinder, I think.
Montreal Clown Tinder.
So it's so funny. This is the innocence of a child's mind. I remember, and this was my big hot take about Big Comfy Couch back in the day, is I always hated the clock stretch because I, of course, would not stretch along, and I would be so bored waiting for the rest of the show to go. And it's so funny because watching it now as an adult, it's literally a matter of seconds. Like let's see how long it lasts. It's like let's see.
It's got to be.
It starts at like 5. It starts at like 5:06 and it goes. So it's about a minute. And to me, it felt like 10 minutes as a kid because I probably only had so much TV time. I was keeping track of my TV time, and I would be bored to tears during the clock stretch. I hated it. My least favorite part of Big Comfy Couch. But apparently, it was because I wasn't doing it as intended, which is you're supposed to be following along and actually getting off the couch and doing the clock stretch as well.
Well, I just always thought it looked kind of neat, and especially seeing it here. Like I said before, Lunette's limb control, she's able to go from, she's not able, I don't know if she's able to do the splits or anything, but, she makes it look pretty impressive. Because if I tried to do this, it wouldn't be as smoothly and with a degree of body control that's, a physical actor would be able to do. I'm also fairly confident that if you asked any Canadian from the age of 25 to 35, they would know this tune, the and so on. It's one of the very recognizable, like along with the theme song, it would be like this, and maybe like the theme to the 10-second tidy later. So yeah, the clock stretch, which is done in every single episode, pretty much without fail. The story of this episode is that after they play pick up sticks and Molly accidentally drops the pick up sticks on the floor, Lunette calls her a clumsy clown, and she takes that very much to heart. And Lunette's only playing around and using it as a fun nickname, as she says. So Molly chooses not to go to Granny Garbanzo's place with Lunette, which is like when the point of the episode where Lunette goes outside and goes to Granny Garbanzo's and where we see the other characters. So she goes over there. She initially runs into Major Bedhead.
By the way, great set, super vibrant.
Yes,
feels lived in. You know, some of these kids show sets, these old ones, especially with this type of format where it's like definitely in some controlled studio environment. They can sometimes feel overly sterile or they all kind of look fake, but there's a difference between making them feel fake but also like a playhouse or kind of a little bit magical, and then fake like it's just looks like a props department. And this set has a great lived-in kind of the perfect kind of children's show set quality to it.
I also have to really give respect to the actors, who I imagine they probably recorded these episodes, several at a time, and had to kind of go through the motions a lot. And it's really impressive how they were able to keep the enthusiasm going for what was probably a pretty tedious schedule. And you can see it here, like they're very enthusiastic, they're very bright, they're emotive, and I think that not everybody would be able to do that, and not every actor would be able to do that.
Well, earlier you were talking about how Molly was your favorite character. I think this show falls apart without Lunette. And it's funny because
she's great.
When I was doing research about the show, it turns out they've replaced Lunette the Clown. It's similar to like Steve from Blue's Clues or something. In later seasons of the show.
I mentioned that earlier. She just for the final season.
But like, what is her name again? Allison Court? Is that the name?
Yes.
Allison Court is putting on a clinic where she is the glue that holds this whole show together. There's like a charisma and just like this kind of infectious childlike whimsy that she instills in the audience. That it's like, and especially. These children's shows that are this format are so easy to parody because they all kind of have this kind of talking down to you style of delivery to make it easier for kids to understand. There's how many parodies of Steve from Blue's Clues being like, "What was that?" Oh, like they just kind of talk down to you, right? But
yes,
there's something about Lunette's performance where I feel like it transcends that style of delivery, where she's still kind of doing that. Oh, I'm going to talk to you like you're a little kid, but it doesn't come off creepy and weird or stilted like some of them do.
It seems very chummy.
Yes.
Like she's young enough where like as a kid you can make the leap. It's just like, oh, she's a kid like me.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's not. She's like 19 or 20 or 21 or whatever.
As opposed to seeing Steve with his 5 o'clock shadow. Exactly.
So yeah, Major Bedhead is kind of the delivery person for for where they live. So he often comes in with mail and all that kind of stuff. Usually from Auntie Macassar, as we'll get to in a second. He also has quite the Canadian accent. Did you notice on some of these line deliveries?
Oh yeah, I feel like it's actually a little bit like exaggerated. Like his character's voice is almost like a funny voice with an Ontarian accent. He almost sounds like Jordan Peterson or something.
So yeah, when like you can really hear it on some lines. He's just like, "Oh, I got a goal, Lunette," like a really kind of pronunciation. And speaking of Auntie Macassar, he's usually delivering stuff from her. Now, Auntie Macassar was not always like directly on the show to interact with the characters. She was usually like you'd get a postcard from her and that'd be it. But no, it's like she gets a postcard delivered. Lunette does from Auntie Macassar, who is parachuting out of a plane, and then she just drops into the set from a parachute, thanks to the help of green screen. Amazing how these green screen effects, which look very rudimentary now, fooled us all at one point in our lives.
Hey, this one still looks better than JJ the Jet Plane. I'll say that much.
Absolutely correct. I agree. And very, very good perspective.
The auntie lists off a couple of the other aunties, like her antihistamine, which is a joke that's for the adults. Like nobody would have gotten that as a kid, as well as Auntie Pesto.
Auntie Pesto and Auntie Macassar, it turns out, is also is a thing. So this again is from the defunct TV video, but an antimacassar is like that little doily that you put on the couch.
Oh.
Which I'd never heard of before this show, and only in the context of this character. So Antimacassar comes in. She and Major Bedhead get kind of tangled up in the parachute, and Lunette just like jokingly calls Major Bedhead a clumsy clown, and he takes that very much to heart. He does not appreciate being called clumsy. As he said, not all clowns like to be called clumsy. And this is where Lunette, we start to get the message of the episode, which is that, sometimes you can give other people nicknames and it's fun, but sometimes a nickname, somebody might not like the nickname that you're giving to them. And in fact, Antimacassar has a song about that, about the different nicknames that you can give people. And this was unexpected in terms of the references that were got across. So she has this song about like calling people nicknames. And one of the first lines goes something like, "You can call me Ebert, but don't give me the thumbs down." And at first I was like, call you Ebert? What does that mean? And then she did the thumbs down. I'm like, oh my God, yeah. Roger Ebert. It's just like that was a touchstone of culture at the time. It's like you could say Ebert and probably, if not the kid, the parent would know what you were talking about. There was a reference to the Rolling Stones looking old was another one. And then I noticed when they passed under the street sign, it's like the corner of Laurel and Hardy. So like, again, just playing it for the parents back there. But man, didn't expect to see some of these. So this is after the song. This is where Lunette realizes that Molly probably took offense to being called clumsy clown. So she says, "I'm going to tell Molly that I'm sorry." Mm-hmm. Another Canadian pronunciation from Lunette. So she tries to apologize to Molly after leaving Granny Garbanzo's place. We didn't see Granny Garbanzo in this episode. It's too bad. I like her character because she's like a Russian babushka, and I also had a Ukrainian baba myself. So I would have liked to see her. So
yeah, Lunette goes back to Molly and pulls one of these classic like iPhone Notes app apologies, where she in trying to apologize kind of insults Molly threefold and just starts listening. It's like she opened up a thesaurus and looked up a bunch of different words for clumsy and refers to her. She's like, "You're not so clumsy. You're actually more like these things."
More like awkward, dropsy, uncoordinated.
And so this sends kind of Molly into a spiral, to which Lunette's plan is she's going to throw on like a ballet to try and cheer up Molly. And this is where we get to a different set. And again, this thing that I think is really cool about this show is there's so many shows like this where it's just kind of, okay, these are the sets. And like you said, yeah, the production schedule for these shows are like, they probably were like, okay, this set is set up. We're going to shoot in here for 48 hours straight and trying to get all these scenes back to back to back to the season done. And like these sets for what they're using look really good, despite, I assume, not being like the most high budget thing in the world. Like we get this really cool kind of like I don't even know how to describe this, like a periwinkle kind of dressing room, and we get the like Twin Peaks style black and white kind of ska tile floor, and the whole thing just there's a vibe to it, Will.
Very much so. And this is something that apparently Lunette would do a lot, is just play dress up, and she tries in this like garish pink ballerina outfit, and she puts on a dance for Molly where she performs as where Lunette performs as the clumsy ballerina to kind of also put herself in the role of the clumsy clown. Speaking of unlocking memories, I forgot that before every performance, Lunette goes, "Let's go for the show." And then as soon as she said that, I was like, ooh, time traveling. So I remembered that a lot. So she performs for that. Molly is close to forgiving her. And this is where we get story time, which was always a part of a Big Comfy Couch episode. So,
by the way, her performance was reminiscent of like the Talking Heads concert movie, for lack of a better term, Stop Making Sense, where like David Byrne's like dancing with the coat rack. Molly kind of does that here.
I still have to see Stop Making Sense. I haven't seen it
It's
yet.
probably my favorite concert movie. There's a quick aside, concert movie aside. My favorite concert movies are Stop Making Sense, The Last Waltz, of course, Martin Scorsese, and the Up in Smoke tour with Dr. Dre and Eminem and Ice Cube, and all of those for different reasons. Stop Making Sense is like really, really unique in that it's shot on film and it's kind of shot with this like cinematic kind of cinematography, and also it's got this interesting set where it much like the Big Comfy Couch, it's a giant living room, and so you kind of it feels a little bit more like an art piece than just a concert. But it would take too much time to describe those other ones, but maybe someday I can tell you what's so interesting about the Up in Smoke tour. That thing is amazing. But yes, so moving on, she's cheered Molly up.
I will say very quickly, a positive about my dad is that he also really likes Stop Making Sense. So yeah, we're into the story now. So Lunette always brings out a big book and puts on her big yellow glasses that don't have frames. They're just kind of like silly glasses. And they read a story called The Bird Without a Name. And this is presented with a combination of like these painted backgrounds, and then they green screen in a puppet who is playing the role of the bird. And the idea of the story is that, you know, the sun, the rain clouds, other animals are giving this bird all of these nicknames because it doesn't know what its name is. And then there are all these kind of nicknames about how funny it looks and all this kind of stuff. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that part of the ritual of doing the story time is that they always turn on the light by clapping. And I forgot that they had a clapper. Like the clapper would have been in place since the 1980s, and this was relatively new technology at that point. I remember thinking it was super cool when I saw it as a kid. I was like, you can turn on lights by just... That's it? That's cool.
It's something I don't think I've ever done in real life, is like you had been in a place with a clapper.
Me neither. I would love to, though. There is a part in this story where, you know, the bird keeps coming across people, and she comes across an animal called Smelly Skunk, and then Smelly Skunk starts laughing at her, and she's like, "Your name must be Funny Feathers." And I was just like, "Shut the f*** up. Your name is Smelly." Who are you to talk, man?
I'm gonna let your goofy ass, stinky ass, no deodorant wearing ass tell me I'm funny. You got a funny kind of smell, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, for sure. The moral that this episode fails to instill on children isn't don't call people names. It's just that if someone calls you a name, it's to call them a name back.
Right.
No.
And eventually it ends up that the bird sees itself in a reflection and then realizes how funny it looks, and then everybody knows the name of the laughing bird. So I guess the idea, again, the episode is based around like nicknames. So like if it's all in good fun and the other person doesn't mind, then it's okay. But if somebody doesn't like their nickname, then just like apologize, which is, you know what, is sometimes lost these days in the era of, as you said, Twitter note apologies. Or what have you.
Yeah, I'm sorry you were offended. Then get... earlier I was talking about kind of the most popular segments on Big Comfy Couch. And of course, the clock dance is iconic, but kind of... I hated it back in the day. And then we kind of get the inverse, whereas the most famous iconic aspect of the whole show is, of course, the 10-second tidy, in which Lunette, basically it's this still shot of Lunette cleaning up all this stuff, but it's sped up so that it all happens within 10 seconds. Obviously, this is just brainwashing to try and make kids, for the life of you, pick up after themselves, which I don't know how many kids you've hung out with, Will, but they hardly ever do.
Absolutely.
But this I loved as a kid, and I would actually, during the 10-second tidy, I was like, oh, I gotta clean up.
Oh, that's cute.
I'm running around.
I also really like the 10-second tidy because it's very fast, and the music in it is very like sprightly.
It's like a weird, like the horns in it makes it feel like this weird like MIDI ska song or something. It's like it's like I that was not a good approximation.
And there's like the speed xylophone. I've never heard a xylophone played that quickly. Again, another memory unlocked here. So I should mention Molly ends up forgiving Lunette. And then Lunette looks around, and then I forgot that the 10-second tidy had this whole ritual where Lunette would look around, the camera would zoom out, and she would say, "Who made this big mess?" And it would zoom into her face with a like a slide whistle. And then just, "Me?" The camera nods. "I did, didn't I?" "Well then, I have to clean it up. It's only fair. So get ready for the 10-second tidy. Ready, set, go." And then she'd do it. I counted 20 seconds exactly.
Whoa, so this is like WWE Royal Rumble 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's a little bit inflated for time, but the idea behind the 10-second tidy is sound enough. And then it's the end of the episode. As with every other episode, Molly and Lunette go to sleep. And then the kind of lullaby version of the Big Comfy Couch theme plays over the credits. Now, before we wrap up, I sent you another video, Lucas, and it was of a segment that wasn't in this episode, but was also fairly requested and I think pretty well remembered in the show. And that's a segment from the Foley family. Now, the Foley family is a dollhouse that Lunette owns, and occasionally we'll go into it, and it's a mother, a father, and a like teenage son. And they would always kind of do these like physical comedy gag segments where there's no speaking, but they just kind of go around gesturing and usually falling over stuff and getting into disagreements and confusion and all this kind of thing. So the one I looked up, there were surprisingly few of them on YouTube of just there was one where somebody added their own sound effects. There was another where they added like Peter and Chris Griffin's voice, and I didn't want that. So I found one that was like taped off of a CTR television, and it's the teenager of the Foley family playing a violin that makes different animal noises. And then eventually he's stops playing with the violin. He uses like the string to scratch his back. He uses the violin itself as like a bat, like a baseball bat. And I remember really like these were probably my favorite segments because
really?
they were very based around physical comedy. It's a great introduction to like kind of the timelessness of physical comedy, because if you do it correctly, anybody can laugh at that. And I remember laughing at these a lot and just really liking. It's also like the set of it is that it's within a dollhouse, like a room of a dollhouse, but the background is very like black and like white shaded in with black.
Yeah, it
and
looks
the Foley
like
family
Elmo's
themselves are very
world
colorful.
in the way that Elmo's apartment in Elmo's world looked like it was outlined with crayon. The Foley family has a similar look to it. This was one of those memories I forgot I had. Like I haven't thought about the Foley family in like 17 years or something. And so it's funny how much the son in the Foley family is dressed like he's in Odd Future circa like 2011. Like he's got the socks hiked up. Like that is a kid that skateboards for sure. And then the dad in the Foley family just kind of looks like how I look now if I was maybe 100 pounds heavier. So
it's like I often like to say if you and I did the fusion dance. I think there's a few of those of just like it's like if I was you, then that would be kind of like what the Foley father looks like, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I really wanted to make sure that we did talk about that. I really liked that segment when I was a kid, and I can see its value now. It didn't like make me go laugh out loud or anything, but I totally understand. Again, with the ethos of the show being like getting kids moving around, then when you use physicality to be funny, you illustrate another way for kids to appreciate being active and being physical. So I think that that's a really cool way to do it. And of course, it goes hand in hand with clowning, which is a lot of physicality-based comedy. So really cool. So that is the end of a typical episode of The Big Comfy Couch, and there's plenty more to be had on YouTube. So Lucas, what do you think when you go back to this show that you used to watch a lot of?
See, this one is tricky because we always try to look at these shows objectively, and the question we always ask ourselves, because a lot of these shows are intended for an audience much younger than me and you, is that, is this something that, one, does it work as an adult looking back, and then two, does it work, if you had kids, would you show this to them, and do you think it would work for them? As an adult looking back, this is like a blast, because this is just like, and I think it is a uniquely kind of Canadian thing to people in our area. Most people my age remember watching this show, and I have all these fond memories. And it's one of those things where you really don't think about it actively in your day to day. So I'm looking back, all these memories come flooding back. So it's really novel for those reasons. In terms of like, would a kid get anything out of it now? It's funny. There's certain parts, like when she was talking to Major. What's his name? Major
Bedhead.
Yeah, Major Bedhead. I was like, this is really long. Like, it's just her and Major Bedhead kind of going back and forth, and they're just kind of standing there talking. And I wonder how much time for that kids have. But everything else around it, I think there's a magic to Big Comfy Couch. Like, there's something about if you put a really young kid in front of Big Comfy Couch, I think it's partly it's greater than the sum of its parts, where it's like the performance of Lunette, there's something there where that I think just resonates with kids. I think the aesthetic of the whole thing and the way the whole thing looks, there's just a little bit of a magic that you get swept up into. So I think that all those things kind of working together, and then there's the segments that kind of get the blood pumping and just make a kid want to get out of their chair. I think it still works in today's kind of television world, but that could be, me looking back with rose-colored glasses, and I'm just thinking that, and hopefully thinking that because I have an affinity for the show. What did you think, Will?
I think that you make great points as usual. There is kind of I guess a dual nature to how I feel about it, because first of all, I think that it's a great show for kids, and there is so much about it that still works today, and that goes to how much hard work was put into it. The production design, the acting, the puppeteering, the design of the puppets themselves, the music. And I think everything you can clearly tell was done with love and with like a type of commitment to the bits that I think is really, really admirable. This wasn't just something that somebody did just to do it. And we say that a lot on this show, is that the shows that tend to kind of get over the best with us are the ones where you can clearly tell that the people doing it put a lot of effort into it, and it shows. And I think that also shows in the way that the show is fondly remembered by people of our age. I loved Big Comfy Couch when I was a kid. I would watch it every single day. I absolutely loved it. And so as an adult, it's not something I would watch every day, but it is, I respect it so much. Like I think the biggest problem that I had with watching this episode, it's really long. Like it's in excess of 25 minutes. And compared to some of the other shows we've watched, kids shows can be a bit longer, and they can be more typical length, like 20 minutes. Sometimes you can push 25 or even go closer to half an hour. But with this, it's like you said, when they were kind of doing that scene by Granny Garbanzo's house, I was also just like, okay, I'm starting to feel the length of this. It doesn't, there's a lot in an episode. It's very dense, and it is quite long. And I just felt that maybe you could trim a little bit out of that, or kind of just speed things up a little bit. But that's just me talking now. I'm sure when I was a kid, I didn't want it to end. So it's good that it was so long. There is also a kind of distinctly Canadian kitsch to it, of like, you're watching this on like a video at somebody's house, or you're watching it, 4 o'clock on YTV or whenever it would come on. And there is a kind of charm to it that is forever embedded in nostalgia for you and I. But I also think there is an aspect of the show that is rather dated. And I think it does have to do, of course, with the perception of clowns. Like, I just don't know if kids these days are more interested in that, when there are so many more, there's so many more cartoon offerings, I think, that are better animated than a lot of the stuff that we had as kids and are more instantly eye-catching. I don't know what the state of live action children's programming is these days. I know we have stuff like The Wiggles and all that kind of stuff. So there is clearly a market for it, or like a niche for it. But I don't know if something that's this kind of, I guess, laid back would be like something that's takes a lot more time to unfold would be as popular as it was back then. So I feel like it's fine in its time. I wouldn't even say that you would need to like remake the Big Comfy Couch or anything, or even do it again. I feel like it is such a product of its time that it's almost better there, but it is also so good, like in terms of the talent that they put together and how they made the show, that it is almost a shame that like I would have loved to see another television show, like another kids show made by the same crew. And as I said before, Cheryl Wagner, Periscope Pictures, they did, Bunny Bop. I haven't watched any of that, but I would love to have, I would give them another crack at make a live action kids show. What would you do now? Would you do the big, something similar to the Big Comfy Couch again? Would you involve clowns? Would you do something animated? What if we gave Cheryl Wagner the budget to make a children's television show today? What would she make? How would it be different? I would love to talk to her about that. And it really makes me think about what it would look like in 2021 and beyond.
Well, they announced today the premier's looking at possibly bringing back the Atlantic bubble. So maybe a trip to PEI is in store for us to track down old Cheryl and see what she would do today.
That wouldn't be too bad. But all in all, I think this was a great revisit. There's so much of this show that's still very positively embedded in my memory. And I know if you're watching it for the first time with us, it may not seem like all that much. But trust me, this was the shit back when we were kids. And it's hard to think of anything that compares to it now, both practically and in terms of something that is just so clearly... the heart and soul of this is so on display, at least as I see it as an adult. Maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but there's such a scrappiness to this lower budget live action children's show becoming like an international phenomenon. And I think it's great that it had its moment in the sun. It doesn't mean that it will have another one or needs another one, but I think it's super cool that it had one to begin with. Big Comfy Couch. I'm super pleased that everybody was. That's what everybody wanted us to talk about.
If nothing else, I want to know in the Patreon because I think a lot of folks in the Patreon are American, and I want to know what was the American reception of the show, because it is such a Canadian staple. But to hear it was in the Macy's Day Parade, it has to have had some recognition. So let us know in the Patreon. And Will, what are we going to be watching next time?
Well, Lucas, first of all, I agree. I would love to hear everybody's memories of the Big Comfy Couch, and if it was as part of a childhood if it was as big a part of your childhood, as it was for us, and hopefully we did it justice here. So, I mean, this was very YTV adjacent. I was actually surprised when people I kind of put the call out on the Discord of what other PBS kids shows should we do? And somebody was like, Big Comfy Couch. I'm like, that was a PBS show? And I looked it up, and indeed it was. So I think that there's a couple of these very sneaky PBS programs that were also, to me, staples of YTV, which was my go-to channel as a child. So I'm kind of sticking within that realm. And I had an idea while I was watching this show, and it reminded me of another live action show that was around the time. And it just so happens that it was also aired on PBS. So it's stretching it a little bit, but it's our show, so I'm going to count it. Next time on For the Kids, we're going to stay in the world of live action children's programming, and we're going to be talking about The Adventures of Dudley the Dragon.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, well, that'll be in 2 weeks. Looking forward to it.
Does that ring any bells for you? Yes. Immediately?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
I've watched quite a bit of Dudley the Dragon back in the day.
All right. So you can expect something very similar to this. I wonder how... the Big Comfy Couch is pretty well covered across the internet, but Dudley the Dragon may be a little bit harder to track down. It'll be an interesting research component, to be sure. But whether you've heard of it or not, we will tell you all about it. Thanks, everybody, for your feedback and for the new patrons. Welcome aboard. We're really glad to have you, and we'll be calling on you once again. I think by the time... we do the next couple of episodes of For the Kids, we may be skipping a little bit because it might be time to review Monster Hunter. So be on the lookout for that soon as well. You patrons, the return of the Elwood City Limits movie review show. I don't even remember what we called it. I think it might be ECL at the movies, maybe? I'll have to look that up. Anyway, Lucas, really happy that you shared your thoughts and feelings and memories with us. Just don't fall too hard into Montreal Clown Tinder.
I have some pictures of there's like a clown corner in my girlfriend's room that I'll send you tonight.
Clown corner?
Yeah, there's like a little clown, like where she puts her little clown dolls. I'll show you the little clown corner. I'll send that to you tonight.
I have a bad feeling you're going to text that to me at like 2 a.m. and just like spaces between all the letters, just like clown corner. Like, that's enough sleep for me. For Lucas Mancini, my name's Will Young. Thank you for joining us for the Kids, PBS Kids Podcast.